Fun and Fancy Free was released in 1947 by Walt Disney Animation and is their 9th animated feature film and follows Jiminy Cricket as he hosts 2 Disney animated shorts, Bongo about a circus bear escaping into the wild and Mickey Mouse and the Beanstalk, a take on the famous fairy tale. Another month, another Disney animated review, and here we are yet again talking about the 4th film in the package film era, also known as the wartime era. And I have to admit, at this point, this era has just been very draining. Many of the films that came out during this period were interesting to say the least, but many lacked the spark that made a lot of the first 5 films so magical and classics in their own right. But after watching disappointments like The Three Caballeros and Make My Music, Fun and Fancy Free ended up being a bit of an improvement. But based on how I'm introducing this film, you can probably tell that at this point I feel a little less than enthusiastic. But the show must go on, and we have even more interesting films coming up in the next few months to talk about. And I don't want to sell this film short. There's some great stuff here. I think I'm just ready to move out of this fairly mediocre era of Disney animation. So, before we get into my thoughts, let's do what we always do here and go behind the scenes to see just how this film was made. During the 1940s, Mickey and the Beanstalk and Bongo were originally going to be developed as 2 separate feature films. In the 1930s, Mickey's popularity had seen a gradual decline when compared to Donald Duck, Goofy, Pluto, Max Fleischer's Popeye, and Warner Brothers' Porky Pig. In an attempt to boost his popularity, Disney and his artists created cartoons such as The Brave Little Tailor and The Sorcerer's Apprentice, the latter of which was included in Fantasia. In early 1940, during the production of Fantasia, animators Bill Cottrell and Teehee pitched the idea of a feature film based on Jack and the Beanstalk, starring Mickey Mouse as Jack and Donald and Goofy as supporting characters. Cottrell would go on to say, when they pitched the idea to Disney, he burst out laughing with tears rolling down his cheeks with joy. Disney enjoyed this pitch so much that he invited other employees to listen to it. However, he said that as much as he enjoyed the pitch, the film itself would never go into production because Disney claimed they murdered his characters. However, Cottrell and he were able to talk Disney into giving the green light and story development as The Legend of Happy Valley, which began production on May 2nd of 1940. The original treatment for the story was more or less the same as what became the final film. However, there were a few deleted scenes, such as Mickey taking the cow to market, where he meets Honest John and Gideon from Pinocchio, who con him into trading the cow for magic beans. Another version had Mickey giving the cow to the Queen, played by Minnie Mouse, as a gift, and in return was gifted magic beans. Both scenes were eventually cut, and the story was trimmed down for Fun and Fancy Free, and it's never explained how Mickey gets the beans in the first place. After the rough animation, though, on Dumbo was completed in May 1941, The Legend of Happy Valley went into production using many of the same animation crew. However, in October 27th of 1941, due to the Disney animators' strike in World War II, which cut off Disney's foreign release market, The Legend of Happy Valley ended up being put on hold. Meanwhile, production was getting started on a separate film called Bongo, based on the short story by Sinclair Lewis in 1930. It was suggested that Bongo would be a sequel to Dumbo, and some of the cast from the 1941 film would appear as supporting characters. However, the idea never fully materialized. In earlier drafts, Bongo had a chimpanzee friend and partner in his circus act, but the character was dropped when the story was condensed. The character designs were originally realistic, but when paired for Fun and Fancy Free, the designs were simplified and drawn more cartoony. The script was nearly completed by December 8th, 1941, the day after the attack on Pearl Harbor, and on the very same day, the United States military took control of the studio and commissioned Walt Disney Productions to produce instructional, and war propaganda films. Because of this work on Bongo and early versions of Alice in Wonderland and Peter Pan were shelved. It's during this time we get into the package film era, which we've been discussing in great detail for the past few films, as instead of making a single narrative feature, shorts were compiled together to make a feature film based on similar ideas. Because of the animation of Bongo and The Legend of Happy Valley being considered not sophisticated enough for a Disney animated feature, the artists decided to include the stories in a package film. Celebrities such as Edgar Bergen and Dinah Shore introduced these segments in order to appeal to a mass audience, and Jiminy Cricket would also appear singing I'm a Happy-Go-Lucky Fella, which was a song written for, but eventually cut from Pinocchio. The film was released on September 27th of 1947, and by the end of its theatrical run had grossed over $3 million in worldwide rentals. When it came to the reception of the film, critics were mixed. They praised the animation and saw it as a fun, happy picture, but others were critical of the lack of quality and polish found in the studio's earlier outings. Criticism was also placed on the mixing of live action and animated elements, which they believed made the film feel off balance, and in the end, it was just a dull and tiresome film with a lack of imagination. Since then, both stories in the film have premiered as separate shorts as TV programs, and even the shorts have been released separately in later releases as their own standalone offerings. Fun and Fancy Free, in this instance, showcases how unsustainable these package films were critically, despite having been fairly profitable in a period of time that put a lot of stress on the studio. Now, with all of that out of the way, let's go into my thoughts on the film. Fun and Fancy Free, for sure, at least in my eyes, is an improvement over The Three Caballeros and Make My Music, neither of which I fully enjoyed all that much. Make My Music did have its moments, though, but was overall packaged together in a pretty forgettable film. Fun and Fancy Free, on the other hand, I would say is still a pretty forgettable film, but has some nice energy and animation that makes me enjoy it more, even when the film gets really weird in an out-of-place live-action segment. This time around, instead of having a bunch of smaller shorts strung together to make a feature film, we instead have two rather long shorts that are connected through the use of scenes involving Jiminy Cricket, and I'll admit, the two shorts couldn't be more different in my eyes, but they are a lot of fun. Although I definitely prefer one over the other, it still makes for a fairly entertaining film. But I'll start off with the beginning of the movie. Pinocchio is one of my absolute favorite Disney films. If you watched my review on it, you'll already know that, and I think it's nice that we get to see Jiminy Cricket again. He's basically being our gateway into these two stories, and the opening song that starts the film is one I really enjoy. It's catchy, upbeat, and really brings a lot of energy to the beginning of the film. The song was originally a track that was going to be featured in Pinocchio, but was later cut, and I think it fits perfectly here and doesn't feel out of place. It feels like it belongs. The animation is also a step up from what we saw previously with Make My Music, which felt more on the cheaper end, to me at least. The colors are bright and colorful, but also warm, dark, and moody, which is always a plus in my book. And the two animated shorts, though they are very different from each other, they boast two different kinds of animation styles in look and feel, which makes them pretty unique from each other. And especially with the Bongo the Bear segment, you can really tell how this was originally supposed to be a Dumbo sequel of sorts. Not only is the animation style very similar, but it deals with the circus as well. Then you have the Mickey and the Beanstalk segment, which is exactly what it says it is. But the animation here is really beautiful and just a fun retelling of the classic fairy tale. So let's go into our main segments, Bongo and Mickey and the Beanstalk. I have to admit, these segments don't really go together, as I've mentioned. But I think that's what makes them work for the film, and the film's overall title of Fun and Fancy Free. These aren't deep emotional stories. Disney's not doing anything crazy, new, or inventive. But these are just two fun shorts, and it's all around a good time for the most part. Bongo is a simple little story about a circus bear that goes out into the wild and falls in love, and it's a cute story. But cute in the same way I thought Dumbo was cute, where I think it's solid, wonderfully animated, and has some nice energy, but isn't anything too special. I think what bothers me with the short is the narration, and it's the same with the Mickey and the Beanstalk segment. It's delivered so dryly that many of the really energetic moments of the story feel like a bore, and sadly, I have to say, at times Bongo can be pretty boring and overlong. But it's still good. There's one particular moment I love where the bears show their affection for each other with a slap. The music is good, the dancing great, and the joke to me is so out there and genuinely funny. It's just not very memorable, and I do wonder what this story would have been like if it was feature-length like originally intended. Then we have the Mickey and the Beanstalk segment. That's the real star of the show. It's such a fun short with Mickey, Donald, and Goofy living in the fairy tale world that Jack and the Beanstalk is set in. And it has everything. Good music, gorgeous animation, a sense of fun, and it just manages to pack a lot of grandeur in a small runtime. It's also really funny too, especially when we get to Mickey having to deal with the giant himself, who is kind of supposed to be like this lovable simpleton. It's a nice twist on the classic story. And to be honest, I can't see this short as feature film length like it was originally intended, unless the story was expanded more and a little more complex. However, I think the narration for this story kind of kills the whole mood for me. Now, I have looked, and the narration is apparently very different in the version of this story that's done as a singular short. But this film uses a narrator that connects back to the short little live-action interlude before this, and it just doesn't work in my opinion. The climax of the film itself is also really fun, with the giant running amok through the town, and it's overall really memorable. The movie also has a really weird live-action segment that I'm not sure I really like, but it's so weird and out there that I can't help but at least find it fascinating to watch. Jiminy finds his invitation to a party and goes to visit, and we're transported to this live-action segment that mixes some animations such as Jiminy Cricket trying to get out of the way of everyone, but it has this grown adult man at a party with a young girl and two extremely creepy ventriloquist dummies that talk on their own, and all of it is just extremely unfunny to watch. Not a singular joke is funny, and it just gives me creepy vibes as well. Like, I can't help but think there's something sinister going on with this party. It's just a weird, out-of-place moment in the film that was only put in to try to bring in a general audience. But in the end, Fun and Fancy Free does fulfill its promise of a fun time, but only somewhat so. The two shorts are well crafted, the animation and music are both great, and it does provide that Disney magic that we've all come to love and appreciate. It's just not the best that Disney has to offer. I like the shorts on their own, though, and I really want to watch Mickey and the Beanstalk on its own to see if that narration fixes any of my problems. But for sure, the Beanstalk segment is the reason to see the film. Bongo is fun too, just a little overlong and dry, and it is always fun to see Jiminy Cricket. However, at this point now, I can see some of the steam running low in the Disney machine as their ideas feel messy and half-baked in an attempt to put something out. But hopefully that will improve when we get to the next two, which are, at least for me, the best films in the entire wartime package film era. But with all that said, I'm going to give Fun and Fancy Free a 6 out of 10. It's short, simple, and to the point, and ends up just being okay in the end. But I still think it's worth someone's time who wants to experience a little bit of Disney history. But I don't find it anything too special. But what do you think of Fun and Fancy Free? Let me know, and as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, and stay positive.